to Howie Kendrick time. Here's another thought, though. With that said, Howie Kendrick could be a great trade piece for the Nationals to a contender in the American League. Are you hearing me? That bat can hit. He'd be a great DH. He can play some first base, some second base. Range is now limited, but the bat can hit. So let's find him a trade partner. The Nationals need an arm. Is there a contender that could shift an arm over to Washington? Tampa Bay. A bullpen arm, Tampa Bay. Maybe an Alvarado, who is stinking it up in Tampa Bay, but has a great arm, Alvarado. A trade partner there. I'm playing GM with you. But you're talking about your team. Kendrick's on your wire. I think, so tell me who you otherwise could trade. You know, I think I put Chapman, Green, and Eovaldi in 3 different rungs. I put Chapman in the elite, I put Green in the really good, and I put Eovaldi in the I have no idea what I'm going to get. So you get a bat comparable. You want a power bat for Chapman. You're going to get somewhat of an elite power bat in a trade. For a Green, you're going to get a good to really good. And for an Eovaldi, you're going to get pot luck. That's waiver wire fodder. I mean, I would rather pick up Howie Kendrick on the waiver wire and cut Nathan and not have Eovaldi. That's just me. There's more certainty for me with Howie Kendrick playing 4 or 5 out of 7 days than there is with Nathan Eovaldi right now. Plus, he's not even come back yet. You know, I picked up Luzardo. Maybe it's a totally different situation. But I pick up Luzardo, I'm holding him, and now he gets a lat injury. I just wasted a move. I've wasted a bench spot. It's an unknown. And Eovaldi's kind of in that same slot with me. So, I'm just saying, from the information you're giving me, I'm going to say pick up Howie Kendrick off the waivers in hopes he either plays more or gets traded. Because you're right, when he plays, he's a force. Isn't what, 320? Double-digit home runs, 40-some RBIs. I mean, that's production. And so somebody's going to use him. If Washington can't, they're going to trade him away. Somebody would love to have a Howie Kendrick on their team. I just don't know who the partner might be. I've read nothing about that, so I'm only giving you guesstimations. But that's how I would look at it, Jack, if I'm in your shoes. I'd love to see your waiver wire. I'd love to see teams in your league. Maybe I could, piece something together for you. Here's an interesting thought, and I'll give you one I got offered this afternoon. I passed it along, and I've yet to hear from my buddy Phil Chapman. But I was offered in a league. I have Mike Trout. I was offered Rendon and Mookie Betts for Mike Trout. And I thought, I'm giving away the best player in the deal. I'm in first place in this particular league. But then I looked at the end of the year schedule and check out who Boston and Washington play near the end of the year. And I thought, hey, that might not be such a bad trade. I haven't pulled the trigger on it. Just telling you that's something I was offered. But then I've got to look at who are these players going to be replacing. Obviously, if I trade Trout, Betts takes his place. And so far in 2019, Mookie Betts has not even been in the same conversation as Mike Trout. And then I've got Rendon hitting over 300 with 20 bombs. What would I do with him? This team I've sort of constructed it from a power standpoint. I've got Moustakas, who can play third. I've got Chapman, who can play third. I've got Devers, who I got off of waivers. Did you hear me? I don't want to say that too loud. I got Rafael Devers off of waivers. Yeah. So, just something to think about. I tell you, playing GM, what do you guys think about Bo Bichette? for Toronto. He has been absolutely killing it at AAA. And, the thing that's holding him back is they got Freddie Galvis, who all of a sudden this year has become a miniature version of Mickey Mantle or something. If Galvis wasn't hitting 15 bombs and playing like Mantle or Ruth or something, I'm exaggerating, but, we'd already have Bo Bichette in the major leagues. But there are going to be some rookies who come up, probably not now, but in the next 3 or 4 weeks, who can carry the stick and carry the stick well. And are you better off, Jack, or Mark, to look at those type of players who you could maybe get off of the waiver wire and not have to give up one of these closers? It's an interesting dichotomy of how things work, isn't it? You get near the trade deadline. And I frankly love the fact this year, guys, that the trade deadline is July 31st. None of this crap about waivers till August if you pass through in the middle of the night. I remember the year. Do you remember the year that Curt Schilling went from Arizona to Boston? And they showed the next morning the trade. And it was like, what? I need to pull it back up on Google. But it was like 3 players I had never heard of before. And, by the way, I've never heard of since, for Curt Schilling. Curt Schilling, back in 2001. That's like getting Max Scherzer today. No joke. And so, Arizona trades it away. Boston gets Schilling, and wow, guess what? They won a World Series. And that's the kind of thing that can happen. Trades that happen in reality would never happen in fantasy. That ought to be the litmus test for the commissioner's office. Would a fantasy owner accept this trade? Never in the world would that have happened. But it happened. And Randy Johnson one year went from Seattle to Houston and won 9 games, went 8-1, whatever, blew them away. And, that's just the kind of trades that are made. So these pitchers that are arguably aces or potential aces, they may get traded for players at low A, single A, double A that may never make it. Fantasy-wise, it's a different story. You want a power bat. Who might, one, be on the waiver wire who may be called up? Number 2, let me ask you this. Your league, if you're listening still, Chapman, what or who do you think is comparable to Chapman on other teams in your league? Why don't you send me 3 names? Why don't you do the same thing for Green? Why don't you do the same thing for Eovaldi? And if you have trouble coming up with at least 3 names for either of them, then you can't make a trade. That's what I do with trades. When I look at, I want to trade, I got a weakness on my team, whatever it might be. I write down the player I'm going to trade for and try to trade analyze it, whatever you do in your own mind, or you use a tool on the computer to do it on, whatever. But come up with 3 names of players that you want. Now, here's what I do then. Send out a message to your whole league and say, I'd like to trade Aroldis Chapman, and I want a hitter. I want a power hitter. Anybody interested? Okay, now you've put it out there for the whole league. And if you've identified 3 players, Jack, that you would actually trade for Aroldis Chapman, then make those trade offers to those 3 teams specifically, or for those 3 players. They could be on the same team for all I know. But number 1, you've not tried to create a monopoly by just offering it to one team. You've put it out there on the message board for the whole league. Follow me? And then you've gone out and signaled to 3 teams, I'd like to make a trade to you for this player, you for this. And let's say none of them go through, or one of them goes through, or you get an offer from somewhere else in the league that intrigues you. Just something to think about when you're making these trades. trade deadline in your fantasy league, look at that. Look at your league rules. I'm sure if you're listening, you already know that. But it's critical to know, when does the trade deadline happen? Because it very well may be your trade deadline in fantasy is after the major league trade deadline, which is a great benefit. Because then you know where a player like Howie Kendrick is on August 1st. You know then where a player like Renfroe is for San Diego now on August 1st. You know where Zach Wheeler is. Ian Kennedy. Green. You follow me? All of these players, if they're moved, will know. And it would be great to know if you're in a fantasy league whose trade deadline is after the major league trade deadline. I think for fantasy it would be kind of cool if all the trade deadlines were the same date as, or the day after, the major league trade deadline. We'll see. We'll see. Good question. Thank you for the questions, and I really appreciate you guys being in the chat room. Here's what we got going on tonight at 7. My good buddy Phil Chaplin, he's live with you. And Chappie, I've covered the standings earlier today, but I didn't cover it tonight. I thought you might want to go there. I've covered players. I covered the All-Star game. We talked about the Futures game this morning. If you didn't listen this morning, go back on demand. You know, I'm on iHeartRadio. I guess, you know, I've arrived, right? Whatever. I want to thank Lenny and Andrea, and if you didn't listen to them, they were on Craig Mish's show today on Fantasy Sports Network. Great job, guys. I listened in. Maybe one day I'll grow up and I can talk with Craig Mish. That would be, you know, just the dream come true. I tried to call today, and they wouldn't let me through. I wanted to ask some questions. I had 3 questions ready for you guys, and no one would. They'd answer the phone like an automated source, and it said, "Please hold on. Someone will be with you shortly." And they never got back with me shortly or longly or anything. So I missed out. I tried. But great show today, Andrea and Lenny. It was good to hear you on Craig's show. I know you enjoyed it. And you know, I turn on Sirius XM. There is absolutely no fantasy baseball now. It's all football. And, you know, I can digest all the football I need in about 2 weeks before drafts. And so I'm thinking, why they do this to me? You know, now's the important time. Now's when I really need the deep dig information on players to watch who may be coming up, to look for, and now all I get is what the Raiders or Cowboys are doing. And I love the Raiders, but I love fantasy baseball in July. So there you go. Guys, it's been great. Chaplin follows me at 7. Chappie, I don't have internet still, so I'm not sure I can even do the 9 o'clock show, but we'll talk about it. I'll be listening in when you go on at 7. There's no Ezekiel Roundtable tonight, so if we are on at 9, that'll be the last show today. I'll be back on morning show on Thursday, okay? So you guys tune in Thursday at 10. We'll be back with you then with more fantasy. We'll be back into Major League Baseball. There is a game Thursday, Texas and Houston, the only show in town. The only show in town sports-wise tonight's the All-Star game. And what do we do on Wednesday? We just talk about things that are yet to come. There you go. There's a song with that line in it somewhere. Anyway, great to be with you guys. Thank you for listening to Arnie's Fantasy World of Sports. Have a good night, everybody.